to Side by Side, a podcast where I, Robert Kwong, take you inside conversations with artists, creatives, healers, and warriors taking the charge in their transformational story. Today's guest is Mordy Levine, the co-author of The Beginner's Guide to Karma, How to Live with Less Negativity and More Peace, alongside Lama Lhanang Rinpoche. Lama Lhanang Rinpoche was born in the Amdo region of historic Tibet and received a traditional monastic education and later studied under several respected Tibetan lamas. Today, he teaches Vajrayana Buddhism at the Jigme Lingpa Center in San Diego, California. Mordy is an entrepreneur, meditation teacher, and the president of the Jigme Lingpa Center. He also created the Meditation Pro series, a meditation program designed to alleviate chronic health issues. In this episode, we discuss how karma applies to our daily lives and current affairs, the daily practices that cultivate positive karma, and answer some burning questions about the nature of karma from a Buddhist perspective. You can find more side-by-side conversations at sidebysidepodcast.podbean.com. And if you'd like to connect with me about my services, please visit www.robertkwonghome.com. All right, so I'm here today with one of the authors of The Beginner's Guide to Karma. As I was speaking to Mordy today, I was saying how timely it is. Yeah, it was a real pleasure to be able to absorb this text about karma, and I think it's a great opportunity as ever to introduce some listeners to this concept a little bit more. So thank you for taking the time out today, Mordy, and congratulations on this book.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. The motivation behind writing the book with my co-author, Lama Lhanang Rinpoche, is that the world is getting crazier and crazier, as I think, we all know. So we figured that, if we write this book, if people understood what we believe is what karma really means, then it would help us all behave better. Because it seems like people are just kind of out there, maybe even ourselves included, a little bit out of control. So that was really the motivation behind writing the book, so we can explain from a Buddhist perspective, what does karma mean?
So even though, one of you is not present today, it's always interesting to hear how you two connected, how you two met. Certainly both had different, maybe origin stories in some ways. And then how did you come together for this book?
Sure. So I've been practicing Buddhism now for over 40 years. And as I got older, I looked around for, who's going to help me through the dying process. Hopefully I'll have many years before that happens, but, as my teacher and co-author says, tomorrow or death, we don't know what will come first. So the Tibetan Buddhists have a very detailed understanding and teachings on the death process, on the afterlife, which is called the bardo, et cetera, et cetera. So about 7 years ago, I started looking around for that type of teacher. And of course, I luckily met Lama Lhanang Rinpoche, who is a master in many areas, including guiding people or students during the dying process, as well as through the bardo, through the afterlife, with the goal, I hate to use that word in Buddhism, but with the goal of having an auspicious rebirth. So that's how I came to know him. And then, and currently I'm the president of Jigme Lingpa Center, which is a nonprofit Buddhist organization around the world, and he's the spiritual leader. So, as a result of that interest, we actually wrote a book about a year and a half ago called Tibetan Book of the Dead for Beginners. I know we're not going to talk about that, but that's kind of where it all started. And then we came up with the second book, which is Beginner's Guide to Karma.
I love that title, The Beginner's Guide to the Tibetan Book of the Dead. Something about that is rather, I don't know, it grabs one's attention, doesn't it? Certainly. I pulled a couple quotes from the book.
Right.
Of course, the entire text is very easy to absorb, I would say, overall, and people can go through it, I would say, fairly quickly. But you begin with, it's not that we disagree that's a problem, it's how we disagree. So I hear that as the underpinning of why it's important to talk about karma. So what is the relationship between karma and this polarization that you speak about in the book?
Let's get straight to the point.
Yeah.
So I think that we don't understand. Every religion talks about karma. They just use different words. Oh, if you're a really, really good boy or a good person, you're going to meet God. You're going to go to heaven. Or you're a bad person, go to hell, or whatever. Bad things will happen to you. But Buddhism gets into a lot more depth. So the word karma, I'll give you a 3-minute background. The word karma literally means action. And there's 3 kinds of action. There's action of speech, action of thought, and action of mind. And action of, I'm sorry, action of thought, action of speech, and action of actually physically doing an action. So we have karma taking place during any of those types of activities, shall we say. And the Buddha came along, and all that's been around for thousands of years, even before the Buddha, before Buddhism, before Hinduism. It was written about in the Vedas. And basically what the Buddha did is he taught something much more refined than just the typical, that happened to Joe because that's his karma. It's a very simplistic view. He taught that it's not so linear. It's very sophisticated. It's not as mechanistic as we think. The second thing that he taught is that it's based upon motivation. Karma is based upon motivation and intention. So, for example, if I'm going to write a check for $100 to a charity, I heard my next door neighbor wrote a check for 90. But if I write 100 at the end of the year, then they post who donated and who's gold, platinum, silver. I want to make sure everyone sees that. So that's one motivation. Or, I'm going to write a check for $100 because those kids, they really need school supplies and food, and it's very important. So the Buddha taught that it's based upon motivation. That's the core. That's the crux. The third thing that he taught is that this is not a predetermined life. We have free will. We can determine our karma. We can change our negative karma. We can create positive karma. And the fourth thing that he taught was that karma is the essence of how we are reborn. That's all you take with you. You can't take your money, your clothing, your house, your wife, your dogs. Only thing you take with you is your karma, and that determines the kind of rebirth you have. So with that in mind, that's kind of how all Buddhists look at karma in that regard. If people had an understanding of that, in theory, there's more to it, of course, we would hope that we would all, myself included, behave better.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
the kind of the goal here of the book.
So there's another line in the book that almost every other sentence can be quite thought-provoking if you think about it, but all those who are unhappy in the world are so as a result of their desire for their own happiness. All those who are happy in the world are so as a result of their desire for the happiness of others. And I think that touches on some of what you're talking about, the motivation, the intention behind your action, your thoughts, and your words. But my question was actually kind of about what you were talking about, determinism versus free will. If this happened to you, if something quote unquote bad or undesirable happened to you, does that mean you have negative karma? Or how do you, there's that line of like, how come good things happen to quote unquote bad people, etc. How does that square away inside karma?
Great question. Get that question quite a bit because it's very upsetting to people when they see misbehavior and people getting away with it, whatever that is.
Correct.
And it always kind of eats away at us and irritates us, which is not a good thing. So talk briefly about the consequences of karma, which is if I yell at you, I'm more likely to yell again. I'm more likely to be yelled at, and I'm more likely to find myself in a yelling environment. If I shoot you with a gun, I'm more likely to shoot again. I'm more likely to be shot, and I'm more likely to be in a shooting environment. If I'm generous, I'm more likely to be generous again. These are all the consequences of karma. I'm more likely for someone to be generous with me, and I'm more likely to be in a generous environment. Having said that, karma really can be categorized based upon the degree of selfishness and selflessness your motivations are. So the example before I gave was someone donating to a charity. What's your motivation? So if we can continue to ask ourselves those types of questions, is my motivation selfish, self-centered, or is it selfless? That will determine the kind of karma I have. The problem is it's so easy to just, let's say I want to just steal money from you. Initially, I get a little bit of happiness from that because I have money, more money. But that's short-term thinking. And the karma from that clearly is negative because it's at someone else's taking advantage of someone, and it's very selfish of me. So let's talk about those people that we look out in politics or any part of life, that why are they getting away with this stuff? And the answer is they're not. karma, those consequences of karma don't necessarily take place right away. If I punch you and you're a martial artist, boom, you're going to punch me right away, instant karma. But in many cases, the karma, the results, the consequences of karma can take place over lifetimes. And if you want to get even deeper, a lot of politicians out there that we will call misbehaving in their mind, they're probably living in the hell world in their own mind. It may be happy when you win an election, it may be happy when you get your way on a certain topic, but all you're doing is, that kind of anger, violent thinking, fighting, that's just going to continue. That's the pattern.
Yeah.
If that's how I get things done, that's not going away.
I do think some people think about this lifetime versus before or the next, and everyone has sits differently about what that concept is like for them. But you do talk about something that I think is very important within Buddhist teachings, which is the poisons, right? And you talk about, you can achieve tangible results in this life, let's say as a politician or a successful person, but it could still be through ignorance, attachment, aversion, pride, and envy. So I'd love for you to touch real quickly on why these concepts are so important to focus on when you're thinking about your own karma.
Okay, yeah, great. Let's break it down to its most simplistic level, which is, I don't care about that rebirth stuff. I just want to be happy now. Well, first of all, I would rather use the word instead of happiness, because happiness can mean lots of things to a lot of people. Short-term happiness, long-term happiness, sensorial happiness, psychological happiness. So let's just keep it simple and call it freedom. I want to be free. What are free of what? Free of these negative states of mind, because the only thing that can determine our freedom or our happiness is our state of mind, nothing else. You think you might be happy if I give you $1 million, but I promise you, weeks from now, months from now, your level of happiness will go back to where it was before, because your operating system has not changed. Yes, you have more money in the bank, maybe, but your operating system, whether you're an angry person, a jealous person, whatever it is, that has not changed. So the only thing that you can give you happiness or freedom is your state of mind. And guess what? That's the only thing we can control. I can't control my dogs. I mean, I can train them, but I can't really control what they think or do or feel, or other people. I wish you would be that way. I wish you'd, yeah, maybe, but can't really control others. I can only control my own state of mind. And that relates directly to karma, because if we understood what our motivations are, what our intentions are with our thoughts, our speech, and our actions, and you train your mind, you retrain your mind through meditation or many different other tools, then that is going to bring us that sense of freedom, joy, long-term happiness, and then if you believe in rebirth, of course, an auspicious rebirth.
Since I have some time with you, just you, Mordy, I was wondering if I could ask you some questions about how Buddhism has impacted your life. So, obviously you have been at this for a while, but just asking you a personal question, how did life change as your practice deepened?
So I started practicing. I was very unhappy. I didn't know it growing up. And I ended up going to graduate school in the University of Chicago Business School. And there I started to practice martial arts. And I didn't know anything about it when I got into class. But all I knew is that when I left, I was clear. My mind was clear as a bell. Whatever was on my mind before. And it wasn't simply a matter of just getting exercise, because it was very different state of mind than what I experienced after running or swimming or other types of exercise. The clarity of a martial arts class where you have to stay focused, you have to be in the moment. Because in the moment you get hit. That was amazing to me. So I went back to a second class and a third class, and there was meditation before. It was very traditional Japanese karate. And so before class and after class, we would meditate. I didn't know what I was doing. But long story short, that kind of brought me down the road of Zen Buddhism. And that's when I realized how unhappy I had been growing up, and that I was in a box. So through martial arts, which to me is synonymous with meditation, I was able to little by little push the box out, maybe get out of the box, although maybe we all still live in some box. Fast forward now, it's really based upon meditation and the teachings of the Buddha. So through meditation, the craziness that goes on in our mind fades. It's not there that often. It's not that strong. When you understand karma, for example, or your mind, that's when you realize that a lot of things that you are doing are just hurting yourself. So you stop doing it. That's easier said than done. But the goal is really a sense of freedom. And that's what, and it's a long-term play. It's not like, I took a meditation class, 20 minutes. I don't feel any different. What I tell people is, the habits of mind that you've created over 20, 30, 40, 50 years are not going to go away in 10 minutes.
No, it's I'm a pianist, so I know how that goes. You can't just wish for something to happen
Yeah.
if you haven't practiced for a
Yeah.
year.
Although I'm going to change topics a little bit, although you've probably seen the videos out there of 2-year-old, 3-year-old little babies playing incredible music on the piano. And my answer to that is, yeah, they've had an auspicious rebirth. It came from past lives.
That's a juicy topic. But yes, and also kids are just naturally don't have the attachment to the intoxicants that we just spoke of either. And that
For sure.
felt sense. I don't know that I particularly liked it, but I did study martial arts and I wish we had meditation as a part of it. We did not. I think that would have helped me a little bit. So hearing your experience with martial arts mixed with meditation, I think that would have been wonderful for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So you talk about taking action and being mindful of your karma with speech, thought, and action. Does that mean inaction or choosing not to speak up is kind of karmically neutral? How would sort of choosing not to take action, how would that square away with thinking about karma?
So the answer to that is, what's your motivation? If you said, gee, I'm not going to say anything about that little boy over there being abused by his father, because I don't really, I know the father loves the child and maybe it's not really abuse, maybe it's something else. So you're being open-minded. So that's positive karma. But if it's like, I'm really too scared to call the police about something, I see there's something horrible going on and I'm not going to do anything, then that motivation is really very self-centered, and that would be negative karma.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And I also love that so much of this is really about free will, which I think is a common misconception sometimes when it comes to devoted practice. And this is what the teaching is, that you no longer have the power of choice, or that you kind of, you as an individual stop mattering in some ways. But what I hear in this is that it's not that linear. It's not black and white. And you describe in the text that our karmic plays are being played out all around us as individuals, and that we affect and influence each other. And I guess I'm just sharing that, not even necessarily having a question, but that's why sometimes thinking about being a good person can be quite complicated, even though the concepts are, I would say, fairly simple. Do no harm, for example.
Yeah, no, it's messy, because it's not just me sitting here with my own thoughts and speech and action, but I have my past, which comes through, which could be this lifetime, other habits from this lifetime, or habits is synonymous with karma, or from previous lifetimes. I'm interacting with other people. There's collective action going on. So it's very messy. So we just try to simplify it, which is instead of looking to see who's to blame and what's causing what, we just say, hey, just watch your own motivation, do your own work. And that's all that you can really control.
Yeah. I will read this real quick from the book. Blame or fault is never the focus when we look at karmic actions that may have taken place many lifetimes ago. The Buddhist focus is on acting now to prevent it from happening again. We are individuals and we all must learn from our mistakes. So how heavily should we focus on our past lives and any karma that has been built up as a result of past lives? Or do you say we should just focus on the present, or maybe both and?
Yeah, I think it's interesting to kind of look at your past lives if you can. Very, very, very few people can. I think, Shirley MacLaine is one. She remembers them, but most 99.9% people do not remember their past lives in the way that we think they could, which is, oh yeah, I was a king, I was a pauper, I was a...
Right.
No, we don't remember that. Some children remember their past lives, usually until the age of 3 or 4, and then it kind of fades. That's a whole other topic. But the bottom line is, as Lama Lhanang would say, the past is history, the future is mystery, the present moment is a gift. There's nothing I can do about the past. What's done is done. I can only retrain my mind right now to be in the moment, to observe my thoughts, to look at my motivation, and retrain my mind now. It's the only thing I can do. So I'm not going to say it's a waste of time to understand what my karma was, but chances are you're not going to be able to figure it out. Sure, in this lifetime, well, I yelled at my son 3 weeks ago, and now he's mad at me. Okay, he's yelling back at me. Guess what? Karma. Or I'm a rude person, and I try to figure out why my son is rude and my daughter is rude. Karma. So there's some things that are kind of basic, and you can definitely, I've been a smoker my whole life. Now I have cancer. Karma. So there's some things that are pretty basic, but at the end of the day, yeah, if you could figure it out, if it's that simple, great. But other than that, just work on ourselves right here, right now.
And in fast forwarding, looking at our lifetime, how can we use the laws of karma as it relates to end of life care and having a healthier relationship with mortality and death? I certainly have met some folks who was drawn towards Buddhist traditions or Eastern traditions, but there is a heavy discussion around this topic, as it can in many other traditions. But how can we use these practices thinking about our last season?
Right. So the only thing we can take, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, the only thing that we can take with us into, if you believe in rebirth, is your karma. Can't take anything else with you. So if that's true, and not only that, how I am right now, my state of mind now will determine pretty much how I am next moment from now. If I'm running around yelling and screaming, then chances are a minute later, I'm not going to be smelling flowers and citing poetry. If I'm an angry person, that's pretty much my habits that I've created and developed. If I'm a happy person, if I'm a selfish, if I'm generous, whatever it is. And that's true up until the moment of death, as well as the afterlife. So if I am a person who dies, who before, during the throes of my death process, I'm angry, I'm irritated, I'm annoyed, I can't believe they're going to take my house, my children, they hate me, they love me, who's going to get the car? If I'm like filled with all kinds of thoughts like that, then that's how I'm going to go into the next moment, which is after death. What we believe is, the body's gone, the brain is gone, but the consciousness continues, aka karma. So if your consciousness continues and you take your karma with you, it's the only thing you take with you, then you take that into the afterlife. The afterlife is like a dream state. Before I go to bed, if I watch a horror movie, you can be assured that my dreams will have that flavoring in it, horror flavoring. And the same is true in the afterlife, which is similar to a dream state, which carries on into rebirth. So how it is determined, the kind of family that you are reborn into, the city, the state, the country, the neighborhood, is it a loving, supportive family in a free country, or is it a very, very poor, abusive family? So all that gets determined by your karma in the bardo or the afterlife. Long story short, so if we have that understanding, then we can start doing that work now on retraining our mind to be in the present moment, to have selfless motivations in our thoughts, speech, and action, so we can have greater freedom, positive karma, die, we call it a good death or a calm, peaceful death, go into the bardo and have an auspicious rebirth. That's the map.
I personally don't mind you elaborating as you did, so thank you for that. And you've mentioned the term a little bit, and can you elaborate on an auspicious rebirth?
Auspicious rebirth is the chances, what the Buddha says is the chances of us having auspicious rebirth is equivalent to a small turtle in a very large ocean every 1,000 years coming to the surface and sticking its head into a yolk that's found on the surface of the ocean. So it's that difficult, very, very low probability, because let's face it, if you look at all the sentient beings on the earth, well, you have all the ants and the dogs and the cats, and so there's trillions, whatever it is. And the human population is a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction of that. And yet it's the only way that we can, if we seek enlightenment, if we seek freedom, you can only do it in a human body. Auspicious rebirth doesn't necessarily refer to being reborn as a human, but it refers to being reborn as a human in an environment that would be supportive, say, your spirituality. Jewish, Christian, Buddhist, doesn't really matter. And that means the family, the city, the state, the neighbor, there's a whole bunch of things that are combined in that. versus the other side, which is, abusive family, et cetera, et cetera. So that would be an auspicious rebirth. And that's what a lot of people, not just Buddhists, would seek, so that they can, if they believe in being reborn, because otherwise you're just going to experience a lot more suffering than you need to.
Yeah. Obviously, you talk about, well, maybe not obviously to some, but you talk about meditation as one practice that can support our navigation of our karma and begin to develop self-awareness. In fact, you talk about ignorance. If you do something out of genuine ignorance, it may not have as much of a karmic debt, but developing self-awareness can greatly increase, it sounds like to me, your probability of living a more desirable life with not as much negative experiences. So yeah, can you talk about the role of meditation, even though I'm sure a lot of people have been exposed to it by now, but how can we use meditation to better understand where we are in our karma?
Right. So let's talk about what meditation really is. It's not just sitting on a cushion and with your eyes closed and your legs crossed. I mean, that's certainly the traditional way to meditate, but it can also be swimming, it could be martial arts, it could be Tai Chi, it could be gardening. Any activity that you use to calm your mind and retrain it to be in the present moment is meditation. So it could be lots of activity. It could be cooking, or it could be walking slowly. Those people that say, oh, I can't sit and meditate, that's okay. Go find whatever works for you. Could be yoga class, Tai Chi class. Doesn't even have to be Asian formulations, but it could be, like I said earlier, swimming, walking slowly, things like that. And what that does is that allows you to retrain your mind to be in the present moment, more sensitive, more aware of your thoughts. Then you start to recognize that those thoughts are not you. Those thoughts are impermanent. They come and they go. They're based upon habits, and we can change and break those habits by retraining the mind.
Given that this is an introductory text about karma, readers might take it, absorb the text, and maybe start exploring some of the exercises. You have some meditation practices that are already in there. And some people might say, what's next? How can I continue to deepen my practice? What are some of your suggestions?
If you're a Buddhist, go find a Buddhist teacher. If you're a Christian, go find a Christian teacher. We're not here to suggest that Buddhism is the way and the only way. There's many, many ways to the top of the mountain, and you got to find the one that's best for you. So even the Dalai Lama used to say to people when he was touring a few years ago, he'd say, hey, if you come here, don't change religions. Keep your religion, take from our religion, whatever works for you, what's going to support your life. Great. So that's really the next step, is to find the right teacher. And the teacher could be a yoga teacher, it could be a meditation teacher, it could be a Buddhist teacher, Christian teacher, it doesn't really matter. Find one that resonates well with you, puts a smile on your face, look at them critically to ensure that they're the real deal, and that's a whole other concept. And then, because you'll need to get past through the level. It's kind of like if you want to be the best tennis player in the world, you're going to have to start learning from players that are better than you. You can't just figure it out yourself.
Thank you for saying that. And also, you are a martial artist, which I loved. And it doesn't have to look just one way of deepening self-awareness. I was doing caregiving program at a Zen Buddhist center. And one of the most powerful group meditation experiences I had was walking, and afterwards I was undone in some ways. And I think it was a mixture of the mindfulness with the physical a little bit.
Absolutely. Combination is very powerful. It's very different than a sitting meditation where it's strictly just the mind, although sitting is also very active physically as well. But that combination, I'm a big proponent of the physical with the mind at the same time, paying attention.
Do you have anything to say for readers who's currently experiencing some polarization and, let's say, struggling to ground themselves, which I know quite a few?
We have a lot of tools out there, right? Like I said, running and tennis and things that we can do to, I don't want to say distract ourselves, but to retrain our mind. But I'll just share what Lama Lhanang Rinpoche has mentioned over the last few months as we approach this recent presidential election. He goes, don't lose your mind. If you want to support that candidate with money, time, support them. You want to support this candidate, time, money, support them. But don't lose your mind. And that's, and many of us have taken that to heart, and we're much, much better off for it. And then the other thing he says, hey, the sun's going to still rise tomorrow.
Yeah. I love that one. Absolutely. And I'll end with one last quote from the book. The Buddha can't wash away your karma. He can't take it away. You created your karma. You have to work on it yourself. Thank you today, Mordy. I really appreciate your time, your answers, and being willing to deep dive with an author is always a joy after reading their book. So I hope everyone takes a look and starts, hopefully you can support them in their daily life. If they wanted to connect with you or Lama a little bit more, where can they find you?
Sure. Our website is BuddhistSanDiego.com, and there's contact information there, our classes and things like that. And thank you very much for your kind words. I like to quote Richard Gere when someone complimented him after an interview when he said, "I've had good teachers."
So have I, and I've asked lots of questions, and the tradition continues.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mordy.
Very nice meeting you.